Since you're on the Ruslan Belov channel, this is our daily analysis of the Ukrainian front line. Before we dive in, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel runs a daily breakdown of what's actually happening on the ground, sector by sector, backed by objective control footage rather than guesswork. So if that's useful to you, subscribing really does help the channel keep going. Friends, let's start right away with important objective control footage that has finally reached us from the settlement of Orikhiv. As I said a week ago, Russian forces entered the settlement and are entrenching themselves well in it. Russian forces have managed to gain a foothold in the settlement. The bridgehead is already expanding deeper into the settlement, and today objective control footage was obtained from the southern part of the city. Russian forces advanced 550 meters deeper into the city's territory, meaning about 100 houses are already under the control of the Russian side, which suggests there are likely already a couple hundred fighters in the city. As you can see, Orikhiv is not a small city, very convenient for defense, and Ukrainian forces have dug in there very well. I think it will take the Russian side a long time to storm the city, probably a couple of months at least. The Ukrainian side is also throwing combat-capable reserves in here, so this definitely won't be an easy walk, though there hasn't been one anywhere since the start of 22. The fiercest fighting is going on everywhere. I can't imagine what other army could fight this hard for years. The Europeans would have wanted peace long ago, and the Americans couldn't even fight properly for 2 months. A few painful hits and a couple of soldier deaths quickly cooled Donald Trump's appetite for war. There is also an advance by the Russian side from the settlement of Shabaki toward the settlement of Novoandrivka. There's no entry yet, but I think we'll likely see it soon. The more the Russian side pushes from several directions on the city, or enters, say, from the west and northwest into the settlement of Novopavlivka, and honestly the closer that ring gets, the more this starts to resemble what we already saw play out around several other fortress cities earlier in the war, where a slow multi-directional squeeze eventually forced a withdrawal rather than a single dramatic breakthrough. The fighting here is important for now, but there's no breakthrough yet. We're waiting for additional objective control footage from Orikhiv. This is the second largest city under Ukrainian forces' control after Zaporizhzhia. On the eastern flank of Zaporizhzhia, the Vostok East grouping provided several pieces of objective control footage from the settlements of Novoslivka, Sharivne, and Luhovske. Overall, the Russian army maintains a presence in these settlements here. Now let's move on to the Dnipropetrovsk direction, from which objective control footage continues to arrive. Novoalexandrivka has moved into the gray zone, where both is under full control. Yesterday, the Russian Vostok grouping continued publishing additional objective control footage from various settlements. Oleksivka has also moved into the gray zone. In Zaporizhzhia region, additional information has come in on several settlements, Mern and Voskarenka. Now let's briefly go through the Drushkivka direction. Here, remarkably, AFU armed forces of Ukraine positions are really sagging quite badly, and I don't just mean the success of the past day, although as you can see on the map it's significant too. Here a large pocket was closed. 1. The Hruska River was forced. 2. The defense line running along the riverbank was broken through. 3. And the village of Novomykolaivka was taken. 4. And to give you a sense of scale, the area brought under control here is more than 13 square kilometers. Well, we'll come back to that. However, when I say AFU positions here are noticeably sagging, I don't just mean these 13 square kilometers taken. It's just that over the past 2 to 3 weeks, our forces took Toretsk, took Toretsk, forced the river and took Krasny Kut, then took Petrivka, and now Novomykolaivka. In other words, the southwestern flank of Druskivka, despite being fairly well fortified, is really giving way for the AFU. This whole stretch has effectively become one continuous rolling collapse rather than a series of isolated local incidents, and that's really the more important story here than any single village taken on any single day. Regarding Petrivka, taken a few days ago, it seemed like just another village was taken. However, not only have we now started entering Rysky, a suburb of Druskivka, mind you, but from these positions in Petrivka, we've also gotten as close as possible to the city. These are the closest positions to Druskivka right now. Let me even measure it so you can see clearly. We put a point here on the outskirts of Petrivka, and here, this is Pavlo Skoropadsky Street in Druskivka. And what do we get? 2.5 kilometers. So as of right now, as of August 16th, our army is only 2.5 kilometers from the outskirts of Druskivka, not even the outskirts from the first houses of Druskivka. The AFU command is obviously unhappy about this, and yesterday they sent their fighters from the northern side across the river to retake positions in Petrivka. So what came of it? They managed to force the river, but they were spotted in the fields, and then Russian drone operators worked them over. The entire group, there were 7 men, was wiped out. It's a pretty clear illustration of just how costly these river-crossing counterattacks have become for the Ukrainian side lately. Open fields plus drone coverage almost never end well for the attacking group, and yet the AFU command keeps ordering these pushes because the alternative is simply losing the ground without a fight. Novohariovka, as I stated earlier, is under the control of the Russian army. Objective control footage has not yet arrived for it. The Russian army is currently carrying out preparatory work, and as soon as these 2 settlements around Rysky are taken, the battle for Druskivka will become serious. This will most likely happen either in the fall or at the very start of the winter campaign. Move on to the Kramatorsk direction, where excellent news is also coming from the Russian side. The Russian army has taken the settlement of Pershatromnev under its control, and interestingly, the Russian Ministry of Defense also provided objective control footage. Now it's just under 4 kilometers to the outskirts of Kramatorsk. What's especially interesting is that this is the last settlement standing on the approaches to Kramatorsk. Even on this map, you can see that north of the settlement, there's an entire ridge of hilly terrain stretching all the way to the northern outskirts of the city of Kramatorsk. North of Yurkivka, there's also an advance of the gray zone northward. Here, as we can see, the Russian side wants to reach a broad front right up to the outskirts of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Incidentally, that's exactly what Ukrainian military experts were discussing yesterday, and they sounded a major alarm about it. Here, the Russian army is approaching key heights from which both cities can be observed as if on the palm of a hand, sitting noticeably higher than the settlements themselves. The cities themselves lie in a lowland. Overall, the Ukrainian side is fully preparing for the combat operations to come. The Russian army has just 2 settlements left to take here, and then it can confidently move on to the battle for the cities themselves. These are Vasilivska Pustosh and Nikonarivka. Small settlements, the last gates before the city, so as you can see, preparations are underway here to storm these major cities, and it looks like the North Korean troops who apparently replaced Russian fighters in the north will come in very handy for the Russian side now. The North Koreans will free up significant Russian forces for the assault on Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Now let's move to the northern Kharkiv direction, where there's good progress by the Russian side. Russian infantry advanced in Vasilivka, in the northern part of the village, and slightly to the south. Every settlement counts here now. There's also an advance by the Russian army near Chuhonivka, with the grey zone pushing slightly further west, though there are no newly taken settlements yet. In the Kozacha Lupan area, a settlement has been taken under Russian control. This is Kudiivka. Russian infantry also took the fields west of the settlement. In Odessa region, the Russian side continues strikes with drones and cruise missiles. The Ukrainian side is now suffering heavy losses due to the loss of Odessa's ports, through which enormous volumes of cargo used to pass. Losses of more than $1 billion are reported for a single month, and metallurgy has also suffered heavily, not just because of the non-functioning ports, but because the Russian army continues to strike metal production plants. Last night, the Russian army struck the Ukrainian side with ballistic missiles and S-400 missiles. The Ukrainian side admitted it did not shoot down a single missile. North Korean missiles were also used, and they are now being deployed as a matter of routine. It has become known that the Russian army struck the Kremenchuk oil refinery, the largest oil processing plant in Kryvyi Rih, the largest metallurgical plant in Ukraine. ArcelorMittal was struck overnight. The plant stated that the strike hit its main production facilities. According to the company, key energy and blast furnace facilities were damaged, halting part of the plant's production processes. Summing up the past 24 hours, 3 settlements were returned to Russian control and 1 new settlement was taken under control. That makes 4 settlements and 38 square kilometers of territory that came under Russian army control over the past day. The AFU had no advances at all over the past 24 hours. And now, before we wrap up, let's touch on a couple of stories making waves outside the front line itself. First up, this one's honestly a little unsettling. Sky News is reporting that Iran may have been tracking American troops through their own fitness trackers to help pick targets for strikes. According to the broadcaster, more than 1,300 users were posting Strava workout data straight from US military bases across the Middle East, and that kind of data can reveal the daily rhythm of a base when troops move around and even changes in deployments, including at facilities that don't even show up on public maps. Sky News actually dug up the account of a US Navy contractor who, before the war with Iran kicked off, was regularly posting his runs from the base in Manama, Bahrain. After he was evacuated, he simply switched to logging his workouts from the Crown Plaza Hotel instead. 6 days later, Iran struck that exact hotel. 2 Pentagon staffers were wounded in the strike, Sky News says. And the second story, Ukraine's grain exports are basically getting squeezed from both sides right now, according to Politico. On one hand, Russian strikes are hammering shipping in the Black Sea. On the other, Europe itself is starting to close its doors. After the strikes on Black Sea shipping, Kyiv has been trying to push more grain out through EU countries by land, but Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia are getting nervous about another wave of Ukrainian produce flooding their markets. In just the first 9 days of August, Ukraine only managed to export 463,000 tons of grain, roughly a third of the usual volume, according to Ukraine's agriculture minister Toretsk. Since late July, not a single grain vessel has entered the ports of the Odessa region. As the minister put it, ship owners and crews are simply scared, they're just not willing to send their ships out there, and land routes can't fully cover for the sea route either. Rail and truck transport cost $50 to $70 more per ton, and the route through Romania is limited by low water levels on the Danube. Poland, for its part, intends to keep its ban on Ukrainian grain imports in place, agreeing only to let it transit through to third countries. Kyiv has now asked the European Commission for 220 million euros to help store grain until sea transport can be restored. And if the current situation drags on, Vysotsky estimates global food prices could climb by 25 to 30%. That's everything I have for you on the frontline situation and the broader picture today. Thank you for watching. As always, take care of yourselves and I'll see you in the next one.